21st, 2021, and this is the City of Anderson Board of Architectural Review. First item on the agenda. Anything, Jeff?
Nothing else tonight.
Very good. Then we'll move right into the public hearing. The first being VAR 2116. Jeff.
The applicant is requesting approval for several changes to the building at 102 North Main Street and the adjacent building at 109 East Whitner Street in the downtown historic district. The properties are both vacant commercial spaces. The building that you see here is right at the corner, and that was First Citizens Bank. And then you have a second building here, which was previously a bank, but has been vacant for some time now. What you see here is the current situation. You see the bank building here, the second building here, and then the proposed improvements are on this side. So for 102 North Main Street, again, it's formerly the First Citizens Bank. The applicant is seeking to renovate and expand the building to house Anderson School District 5 offices. And so you see the addition here, as well as enclosing drive-through areas here for additional office space. The additions would duplicate the building materials of the current building, including the red brick exterior, storefront glass, and metal trim. So you see here the current front of the building, 102. You can see here the longer distance view, but you've got, here's where the drive-throughs come through now. Those would be enclosed, similar design, and you see the addition in the back. They're also seeking to add signage on the building. You see here, channel letters, probably halo bit back against the building. That would be on the two corners, right there at Whitner and Main Street. You can see the logo and then the lettering there as well. They would also add fencing at both driveway entrances. You can see here the black metal fencing for security purposes. And again, that would be on both Main Street and on Whitner Street. When reviewing this portion of the request, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 6 and Chapter 8 of the Downtown Design Guidelines. The following policies apply. First policy states to design an alteration to be compatible with the historic character of the property, minimize the visual impacts of an addition to a commercial building. Then Chapter 8, design a sign to be in balance with the overall character of the property. And appropriate signs include the flush-mounted wall signs that are being considered, and the sign should be in character with those seen historically. There's no specific language regarding fencing in the downtown historic district. The board must decide if the proposed changes for 102 meet the above criteria. And so 109 is a little more involved. This is what they're proposing to do, but this would be a demolition and then reconstruction. There's some information in your packet about the condition of the buildings which require demolition instead of renovation. Again, they're proposing to tear down the building and construct a new building on the same footprint. Again, the new building would replicate the design and building materials from the building at 102 North Main Street. These include the red brick exterior, storefront glass, and metal trim. Signage would also be installed on the building here above the door. It's a little hard to see, it blends in there, but same logo and channel letter language on that door as well. When reviewing this portion of the application, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 11 of the Downtown Design Guidelines, which are design guidelines for Area 1, the commercial core area. Rather than type all those out, I just printed the necessary sheets. There are also no demolition standards in the Downtown Design Guidelines. The demolition standards from the residential design guidelines may be used as a guide to inform your decision of this request. We're familiar with those. I'm not going to read through all of those.
Thank you.
Again, the board must decide if the proposed changes meet the guidelines listed above. They would also need to apply for sign permits pending sign approval. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
Thank you, Jeff. This is obviously a very large and important project, but fortunately, we've had the opportunity to individually preview the detail here to help us move along. Again, the materials in our packet also are very expensive and very clear. Let's take the 102 North Main Street first. That involves the addition, the signage, and the fencing. The additions appear to be consistent with the current design of the existing structure. Fully in line with that. Any thoughts, comments, or concerns with that addition?
Like fabulous design to me. Really consistent with what we have on Main Street already.
Greatly be consistent and, harmonious with what's already there. Clearly you have a historic design, that's the building that's there, and it makes sense to continue that. As to the signage, again, we have channel letters, which we routinely approve, pay low rent, consistent with all that we have seen and have encouraged. Any concerns? And finally, some fencing, some metal fencing, seems to be appropriate in scale, nothing distracting from the surrounding structure. Any concerns with that?
Meets our guidelines.
I agree. Then with that, let's do a vote as to 102, North Main Street.
I have a quick about this elevation right here. Would that metal screening potentially continue further to the left to cover some of that HVAC equipment on the roof on the left-hand side? Or was there a reason for not continuing?
And this would be on the North Main Street side here. So you got the corner here, this is where the drive.
We can make sure there's some type of cover there, if you'd like that, to make sure, if it's not a mistake on the drawing, we can make sure that that's something for the cover to be consistent with the.
Right, same material, yeah.
Very good. Good point. So with that modification to your application, you okay, gentlemen? You okay with that modification to your application? Yes. With that, anything further? Is there a motion? A motion from Amanda, second from Mary Lou. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Very good. Now we'll move on to second component, 109 East Whitner. That involves demolition and new construction. Demolition of properties in historic districts. We've gone through this many times. There's certain criteria that we must go through, and we do that for the important preservation of what exists and looking to the future as well. But again, we've had the opportunity to look through this and see this proposal in advance, so we can move this through this somewhat expeditiously. The architectural character of the existing building that's being proposed to be demolished. Appears to me that whatever architectural historic features were long discarded or covered over. Anything to preserve there? Appears not. Again, nothing as to the structure, uncommon or unusual design making it distinctive, worthy of preservation. Old bank building, I'm sure some a lot of interesting transactions, but hardly anything from what we gathered in the way of a historic event or any historic context to the structure. Of course, always important to us is the effect on the surrounding community, whether the demolition would adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. Certainly the demolition, creating a hole in space. However, here we're just already seeing what's coming back. It's not just demolition for the sake of demolition or making a parking lot. Here, continuation of a structure that seems to be very pleasing and appropriate. And finally, as to the structure, its structural integrity, Jeff, I believe that's also in our packet as well, indicating that serious structural problems with the years of vacancy there. Just so they're moving on without any concerns or comments in that first criteria. Then from there, the questions being conservation of the building, relocating of the building, relocating to a different area. None of that seems to be feasible or a worthwhile venture here from all appearances. Any thoughts? Well, go ahead, Andy.
They just said in agreement with.
Sure. So as we've gone through that criteria, but again, we've seen this before, and we've gone through this. Is there a motion as to the demolition? I think that's important, because demolition is so important. Yes, Jill? A motion from Jill to approve the demolition. Is there a second from Bill? Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, and now as to the new structure, again, that's been part of the initial presentation put before us. Again, consistent, good information, allowing us to make a decision based upon the material without really further inquiry. Is there a motion to approve the renovation of the new structure? From John? Is there a second? From Andy? Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Gentlemen, thank you very much. The presentation has been very thorough. It helps us. This is a very important process. All the best. Glad to have you downtown. Next, we're on to BAR 2012.
The renovation of this building came before the board, I believe it was in 2019, so as we have seen it before. At that time, it was going to be a Edward Jones location. They were going to redo the top part of the building, add some openings on the side of the building, and then signage and awning on the front of the building. That has changed now, and so McCoy Wright is just basically going to continue and move into that building as well. And so they have a change to their application. So, and Billy is involved in this, so he can maybe shed some light on some of the details as well. But colors are a little bit different. Looks like white on the bottom to match the white building next door. Looks like gray on the top. McCoy Wright sign, small sign on the front. And then on the side of the building, garage door opening. That's blue with white lettering is what you see there. So it'll be a metal garage door to allow them to bring materials in and out of the building a little bit easier. Now, we're reviewing this application. The board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 5 of the Downtown Design Guidelines for individual building elements and Chapter 8 for signage. The following sections apply. Policy states to maintain a historic storefront and all of its character-defining features. Historic windows and doors significantly affect the character of a structure and should be preserved. Design is designed to be in balance with the overall character of the property. Appropriate signs included the flush-mounted wall signs that are being considered. And again, the signs should be in character with the material, color, and detail of a building. Once again, the board must decide if the proposed building changes meet the above criteria. And of course, the sign permit must be obtained prior to installation of the signs. With that, I have to answer any questions you have for staff, and Billy is representing the applicant tonight, I believe.
Billy, anything you want to add right now?
Just that the bottom material is the existing brick, but it's painted to match the adjacent building, as Jeff mentioned. It's a little misleading with the rendering because it doesn't exactly match, but the intent is to match the color exactly. And The upper portion of the building will be stucco back to the original finish, painted a shade darker than what the brick will be painted. And there'll be a trim cornice piece at the top, which also matches the adjacent building. And the openings in the building are all new, and then we build a new storefront, which also matches the black storefront of the adjacent building.
The windows on the side here, are they solid piece of glass, or is there any mullion to it?
They are solid because that's the way it is with the adjacent building, so I just matched those. Certainly wouldn't be opposed to adding mullions in there. But you can see in that photograph, all of those windows, none of them have dividers.
Okay.
And that continues on the other facade of that building, just a large opening, with uninterrupted pane glass.
Okay. While we have approved garage doors downtown before, when we've done that, they've been a decorative element, not strictly utilitarian, and the orientation and colors pretty prominent there. Comments, concerns?
I like it. I think it's a creative use of being traditional, but almost, it's not a sign, but it's a feature that serves as directional, not direct, it's like a sign almost.
We consider it a sign.
So it has to, it falls within the sign ordinances. I think it's very attractive.
Other comments?
It was a former gas station.
Oh, okay. Before my time.
I hate to see us paint all bricks, but it makes sense here to have all the continuity of the building flow together. And if we didn't paint these bricks, it would be a definite break in our building, and it wouldn't look as good.
Other comment? Just, it's a very prominent garage door, metal garage door. It's metal, correct?
It is set back in the, there's columns. Isn't that correct, from the picture?
I think there's maybe an 8-inch recess.
So it is recessed back.
Not much.
If it were like a black, something that, so neon blue.
There are other garage doors downtown. Palmetto Distillery, I think there's some on the Haven, not the Haven of Rest, but the Habitat for Humanity Resource Store.
The Habitat was there before.
Before.
And it's in the back and strictly utilitarian. Here's the prominent street portion.
So,
And that's just, my thoughts. I
I agree.
And I think if it were left, to cut the white material of the standard roll-up door would certainly not be attractive, but I think the fact that they're wanting to make it blue with their logo would make it a little more.
I can certainly
Like Amanda said, it would look like a sign as opposed to a garage door.
But, the door is open for Magnetic South, who's wanting to add one to their building there, or redo that on the brewery. So they did this on their door, can we do something on our door?
And the ones that we've approved thus far have all been
Functional.
and decorative and aesthetic. Here is just pure utilitarian. Is my concern.
Well, I think it's a very utilitarian building,
Yeah.
so I don't think it's really inappropriate for this use. Like I said, I think you can see where doors used to be back there.
I think the fact that it was a gas station, and that's the kind of doors that would have been, if you look at it that way.
Right. And also, if it were facing McDuffie as opposed to, kind of the side parking service side of the building, I think it would be a different story. it's on this side facade, I think.
To me, the fact that it's recessed makes a difference too.
Okay.
Anything further? Any other comments, concerns, questions? Hearing none, is there a motion? A motion from Bill, second. Jill, all in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Bill. But I knew you had to vote.
Yep.
And it is attractive, I mean, there's no doubt about that. Okay, and exactly, huge improvement. Moving on now to this year, 2112. Yep.
The applicant is seeking approval for window changes on the property of 213 Forest Avenue in the North Anderson Historic District, on the property of a single-family residence. The applicant has replaced several windows in the house. It appears, going back to some old photos from when they did fence approval, here it looks like they were 6/1 windows, or could be 6/6. And now it appears that they've been replaced with 1/1 windows. And so the windows have already been installed. When reviewing this application, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 3 of the Residential Design Guidelines, which are for rehabilitation of historic resources. The following sections apply to this request. Policy states to preserve the size and shape of historically significant windows and doors, repair deteriorated window or door openings instead of replacing, and replace a window or door that is damaged beyond repair with one similar to that seen historically. The board must decide the proposed changes meet the above criteria. I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and I believe the applicants are here tonight as well.
All right. We're done. The difficult situation when you already done it prior to obtaining the approval. So tell us how this came about, please.
I'm sorry, you just give your name for the record.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Warren Manasseh. Basically, we have cracks and holes that are windows. I'm not familiar with historic districts. I knew that we had to get approval for the fence the first time. But being that most of the front had cracks and holes in them, I thought that we could be able to replace them. My fault for not asking. But our neighbors have our double hung windows, no, whatever you call those, cross sections. And so we had a company come out and fix those front windows and a side window that had a shelving unit in it. And we plan on finishing up the rest of it, but I stopped.
Yeah, because I mean, when you came before us for the fencing, that indicates you're in a historic district and exterior renovations need to be coming before us.
I think we did it with the fence, it was pretty obvious that it was an approval, it was something they're adding to them, but we did not think that for replacing the windows. We just didn't think that we would need to do that, it was just further away.
Well, you need to spread the word in the neighborhood, please. So, again, let's go through what we have and what we had and how it relates to the other windows in the house.
So you can see on the side of the building, you've got what appear to be 6/1 windows, and I believe that's what was on the front. 6/1 was on the front as well. And so it looks like going around the house, most of the other windows have that grid pattern, and so what you would end up with, and here's on the opposite side, is a 6-pane window. So, I mean, it appears that all the windows have grid in them. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little easier where the fence was in to get around to get pictures, but this is the side of the house again. You can see the two windows there.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that window behind the tree, that has that unit inside, we assumed that it was a window, like an AC window unit at one point, and they turned it into a shelving unit, so it was literally
So it appears that pattern is what was originally on the house.
But did you say, didn't you have a picture that you showed us that had the original front of the house?
I was taking this for the fence at the time, so you can see there, it looks like 6/1.
And it had different columns, too.
Yes, that was again something literally just did, we didn't realize he was, this is replacing, and we didn't know if he would be single. They were all rotting.
So how many windows have you all replaced so far?
But we plan on replacing the rest as well, because the ones on the back end of the house are not, they're also not in good condition, either. For us, it was primarily an energy issue. The windows were original from the home, and they're not in good shape. The owners had it previously, and not really taking care of them. Some of the things have been replacing with plexiglass, not even with glass. So, which is obviously the case with some of the ones on the back. So,
All right, what do you want to do, folks?
How many more windows do you need to replace? Because this sounds like it's an ongoing project. You're doing it kind of a little bit as you go? Okay. Same condition as the ones, well, you said maybe not as bad, but still we want to replace it.
That's fine. Because it doesn't go up, it doesn't go up or anything.
Mhm.
Back on the side. They're okay, but it's plastic glass on those ones.
Okay.
The back
All right. So what you were planning on doing was getting around to those and replacing them with the same 1/1 that you have right here, so that it would be consistent when you finished up all the way around the house. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask, why didn't you go back with 6/1?
This was all watching.
Yeah, that tends to be, but therein lies issues that we have to deal with in a certain district. Okay.
well, and we have extruded problems on our streets that have windows and stuff like that. And that was part of the decision process, like, we chose this particular company because they custom fit the windows.
Now, I have to figure out how to do that exterior
Right,
stuff.
all the fencing would be consistent.
Mm.
And it's not wood windows like the ones that were, they have a wood finish on the exterior. So we basically looked, we put on our plans and looked at down into the and said what it looks like to help in our street, and that's how we did it.
You see, that's the consideration that needs to come before us.
Right.
All right.
And those may have been replaced, I don't know, they may have been replaced
Before.
and were grandfathered in
Or-
before we were a historic district.
Or original design and appropriate design for the house. Okay, so what do we want to do? Is there a motion?
Well, in this particular house, the grids make so much difference in, I mean, I wonder if the ones that haven't been purchased yet could be with grids, and perhaps they could have even snap-on grids, which we don't usually do, put on the tops of these.
In other words, you have the grids added to these front windows before
Right.
they're replaced.
And then going forward with the new ones to be replaced.
I don't know, I don't know whether, Billy, Andy, if you could address whether or not that's possible.
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can retrofit the grids on just the top portion. I think there's a kit where you can install that where it snaps or attaches on both sides of whichever pane of glass you want to. I don't know what the cost of that is, but I'm pretty sure that can be done.
Could we, table it until our next meeting and have the applicant do some research on that?
if that's the wish of the board.
I mean, I think the 1/1 is still a historic look. I mean, it wasn't what was there originally, but,
Quite a few of the old houses were 1/1.
My house is 1/1.
Just one.
It's like 1905. The original glass was from way the,
personally, I would be okay with approving the 1/1 if the intent was to replace every window to a 1/1.
I have them all the same.
Yeah, I agree.
Then it would match.
Well, I think if our architectural members, having stated that they feel that would be,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes, John?
So the windows that have been replaced without board approval have a paintable wood exterior? Is that,
You said paintable?
well, I mean, wood.
There's wood trim on the outside of the window,
Yeah,
So-
turn that one there before.
and they're painted white.
And obviously, it's an energy efficient solution for you. And if they're going to come back with the same window and just continue the project all the way around and be consistent with it, then the only odd window is the fixed window. That's a small window you said didn't roll up or move.
Well, that's one of the,
It still needs replaced, but
yeah, it's on the left-hand side of the house. It has,
I think you have a further.
And I think as we continue to go down the timeline, other neighbors are encouraged to do similar things, and they're going to ask you what, oh, I see you did this, what's up? And in lieu of, and we periodically inform people that you're in a historic district, usually when the house changes hands. And then initially, when we established districts, what the city council did years ago, but then people forget. So it's important for neighbors to help neighbors navigate the process, and we're easy enough to work with. It's a little difficult on the back end. And we could be very helpful along that way as well, too. So this one would remain,
we can change that.
but that's the only window on that side of the house?
That's correct.
The columns really change the look of a house. Uh,
One thing good about the new windows are, they are wood on the outside.
Yeah.
Vinyl.
All right, so folks, again, what do we want to do? Is there a motion? The motion for John to approve?
I'll move to approve with the stipulation that the remaining windows match the ones that have already been replaced. The front is a 1/1 pattern, the same material as the other windows. Not a lesser cost replacement for consistency's sake.
Is there a second? There's a second from Bill. Anything further? Again, my concerns are that we're in a difficult position. You've been here before regarding the fencing, and we've got not only windows changed, but also columns changed. My comments, all in favor?
One more comment.
Sorry?
I have a comment, one more comment.
Okay, sure.
I've got a 120-year-old house, and it's a work in progress, and it's like, okay, what are we doing next? So, things like, we want to change the shingles on the roof, or I want to get rid of my chimney, or I want to change the composition of my front porch, or put railings on the steps, or anything kind of like that that's, attached to the home. more or less is going to be something we want to take a look at, help you with.
Yes, Bill?
Can we go back and see the picture, the older picture of the house front versus the newer one?
This is today.
There's a huge difference in that.
Columns are different, the railing is removed.
That concerns me more than the windows.
I mean, I've got concern.
Is there a code about a railing?
There is a building code, if the porch is over 30 inches, you have to have a railing, so I'm not sure exactly how high that is, but
Replacement of homes is really a necessity at that point, it's less of an aesthetic choice. So if we need to go back to the column style and the railing, that's not really a big deal. So we made that decision that it had more of a colonial style than the original, but if that's not, okay, then it's not so first. So that's what.
Power line and the front, the third one right there, but literally drove it all the way through. I have to replace that one or it would probably get it down. But replace that one. Try to look through the similar thing of those and those, so we couldn't find it. So for a while, I just put them up there. And I had to replace all of them. But something that I thought was good enough. But again, it's my first house. I've never had another house. I'm moving from Texas. I didn't know people this kind of thing. That's my fault.
Sure. And you were, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you were proposing now.
We were just saying that if there was a deal, we could put the railings back.
Put the railings back. What about the columns?
Right, or the columns, I mean, it's important that the columns were what was the most difficult the rest of the time.
The railing, I'm sure, was not original to the house. And I don't even know if those particular columns were, but they are more of the style of that era, and proportionately, it's such an attractive part of the house. Code, like I say, that looks like it might be, what do y'all think? Like, it's close to 30 inches, but it doesn't look like it's definitely 30 inches.
Could be on the far right hand side.
Jeff, let's look at the current picture, please.
That's,
That's not 30 inches, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps.
Well, it might be, on the far right.
28 inches.
And the columns is concerned.
Yeah.
That's really it. If anything were to be replaced, I'd say columns of that style would probably have to them.
Yeah, like an 8-inch box column or something.
Yeah, and anything like,
8 to 10 inch.
it would almost make the windows be the second thing you,
Right.
The discussion we're having is that the columns, I mean, you've taken away the railing, you've changed the columns, and we're trying to work with you here. The columns that you've chosen are pretty thin and narrow. So if you're looking to replace something, and rather than putting the railing back, if you put a column of appropriate
You put a
proportion.
6x6 and then case it out. Well, I mean, it's simple,
Randy's
but
talking.
it's still beefy.
Case these out, just.
case, yeah.
Just to get it better.
You think?
It's hard to judge from a picture. Really, what would you think would be a good portion?
Probably an 8-inch column. Yeah. And I think you can either buy like a two-piece, wrap around to go around those posts as they are, could build it out and, put flat trim around it to create a square 8 by 8. But I think it does relate to the windows. I think your column treatment could help with your window, as you make the window.
Yeah, I definitely.
With that, the bracks, just, like, where the column, where you want to
A larger square would
I
make
I think either.
The 8.
I think you can give you that width in a definite.
But there's merit in the simplicity of a square column.
If it had a flat at the bottom and maybe a cap at the top or something, where,
With the base trim at the bottom and a cap trim at the top. I mean, I know this was a window.
Right. Well, I didn't realize it. It never crossed my mind that there were changes to the porch. I didn't even think
Sure.
of that, so.
All right, so with that, are you willing to do that, to modify your application and agree to do the 8 by 8 column, adding, boxing it out with the cap as well as the bottom trim? Okay.
What the bottom?
Big wood.
Wood.
Yeah. The old ones were
They were plastic.
plastic, but they had wood on the inside.
Mhm.
They were plastic wood on the outside and then wood on the inside.
Sure.
Wood.
Yes.
So then those were not original,
No,
but they were,
or it's good classical looking for the house.
yeah.
Okay, so modification, to the,
We have a motion.
you got that, right?
Yep.
Okay, the modification, as we've discussed, to approve the windows with the modifications to the columns. Modify your motion.
I can modify my motion to say the same.
Thank you, John. Bill, is the second. Very good. Anything further? All in favor?
Ah,
I'll go along with that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience. Yes, spread the word. Any exterior renovations, changes to come before us, fences and everything else.
Is there, like, I don't notice signs for, like, the historic district over there. I'm guessing there's somewhere along the apartment.
Right. The indication is that the street signs are brown.
Right, is there a little name sign?
On
Sorry?
most streets.
And any further questions as to that, Jeff can certainly direct you.
and someone should have, a realtor or someone should have told you when you bought the house.
We knew the house was in the historic district, we just did not know what all that entailed as far as.
The extent.
Any questions? Happy to, please feel free to ask her. Thank you. Now on to BAR 2114.
13, sir.
13, thank you.
The applicant is requesting approval for a roofing change on the property at 1025 South Main Street in the Anderson Historic District. The applicant is seeking approval for a new roof on a portion of the house. The main portion of the house, basically everything that you see here, that sloped roof, the flat section remain unchanged. And so the changes are to the main part of the house on the sloped roof. Appears to be currently covered with gray shingles. The applicant would like to change it to a burgundy metal roof. So you have this in your packet. It would be this master rib design here in the burgundy color, again on that main section of the house. So all the topmost portion here, you can see there. We're reviewing this application. The board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 3, the residential design guidelines for rehabilitation of historic resources. The following sections apply to this request. The policy states to use roof materials in a manner similar to that seen historically. You should preserve original roof materials, and replacement of roof materials for a historic resource to convey a scale and texture similar to those used traditionally. The board must decide if the proposed changes meet the above criteria. I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
Very good, thank you. Applicant? Yeah. Why not go back with a gray or black shingle, which would be, in my opinion, more appropriate for the structure?
I was trying to do something more to the color of my gray because the brick and things will have to be addressed also. And I didn't want to have to paint that much of a building. So I was trying to just match it with a roof, because the roofing is needed now.
Sure.
Add time.
I'm sorry, I just don't follow because roof is generally to an accent and not blended with the brick. And I don't follow what you're indicating, it's trying to match the brick.
Yes, to me, I didn't like that color, gray, whatever color it was. There's no color now, because all of it is gone.
Right.
So, and I thought that was the best color. I saw another home, one door down from me had red metal roofing, so I went to look at metal roofing. That was the reason I changed to metal roofing.
But this is not a historic metal here. Go ahead.
Well, one thing, it has the wonderful, I'm going to call it ribbing, the wooden,
It has corbels.
corbels underneath there. And so a metal roof, corrugated, has lines and ridges, whereas before, isn't it true that it was a shingled roof, correct?
Yeah, it currently is
Roof.
shingles.
And so those, they're not going to line up, and it's going to end up, I think, looking like you missed.
But even beyond that, I mean, that's not an appropriate roof.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For this style house, that a metal roof would not be.
Right at the catty corner across the street from the structure is 1109, and that has a metal roof, but it's interlocking shingles, or interlocking panels, so you don't have that raw edge sticking out. You can't see that edge of that metal roof.
That's an older,
It's an old original
Historic
metal roof, yes.
Andy? I'm here, I'm seeing something. Through your mask.
No, I agree that I think the red roof would, it would just look like a neon sign on top of the building. It wouldn't fade into the background, and I think it would compete with the features of the house that are so strong.
And I have issues.
I did a scale because I do design, so I did do a scale looking at the metal roof and looking at how it would make the building look more historic, but more up to date. And that's also why I went with metal roofing. Like I say, I wrote the area. Once I found out, I didn't even know that I was out like them. I didn't even know I had to come to the city to ask to put a roof on.
Sorry about that.
So,
But we appreciate you coming to us beforehand.
I
Thank you.
did find out. I did go and do my due diligence and seeing what metal roof in that area, and it is in that area. You will not see no indents like on a regular house with the metal roof once it is put on. Everything will line up to match the building, to make it feel, like I say, look to up to date.
I mean, I just have issues with, I don't think the material's appropriate and nor the color, even if it were in the shingle.
This is a contributing structure in the district, which I think is important to consider.
Aren't we supposed to stick with the original
Material,
material?
yes. Whenever possible. I mean, it's a great departure.
But, I mean, something to think about is since this structure was built with shingles, we found out that if you attach shingles to a low slope, then it could be causing water issues in the building because I think a 3 and 12 is the minimum you can go now with a shingle roof. So if we force them to put a shingle roof on a low slope that's less than that 3 and 12, the roofing company might not warranty it, or we could be introducing more water issues in the future. I do like the look of the lighter shingle better, but again, if it voids the warranty putting a shingle on a low slope roof,
But we don't know that.
we don't know that.
No.
It appears that that's pretty low, at least on the middle portion. And I mean, if it had to be metal, then a gray metal to match that lighter color there wouldn't be as bad as the red metal, for sure.
And I also didn't get no one to even come and give me a quote to even do the shingles for that purpose. And they said it would not warrant the shingles. So that was another reason for the metal roof. That was the only people that would give me price, and I got.
I've seen that.
We just start hearing about it.
Contract.
Well, I would think, even if we were to consider a metal roof, I would like to see a sample of the color. I mean, it's kind of hard to picture burgundy, just going with a name of a color.
It's very dark on that picture than what it really is in person.
Would it be possible to get a sample, a real sample?
Yes.
And the type of metal roof, I don't think any of the corrugated ones would look, like Amanda said, they would not look good up there. I think the standing seam could potentially
They would,
create a little
they
less
would match
low
it
profile.
with
Yeah.
that. And that's what you've got you said that they were going to match it up with for the estimate that you got was,
I just went off of the rest of the metal roofing that is in the area and just went with the same thing that they had.
I mean, well, this is clearly not a standing seam. This is a contemporary,
Well, this
corrugated metal roof. It's not, I don't think it's appropriate.
is standing seam
The one on the bottom,
up there.
Yeah.
one at the top.
It's a lower profile, it has less undulation. It's more of a flat roof, which would give you a more consistent, solid, lighter color.
You wouldn't see as much of the raw edge.
Well, yeah, that would mimic
yeah.
older metal roofs. Yes.
Yes.
That's right. So I would say first preference would be a lighter shingle to match what was there before, but if that can't be done for warranty reasons, then a lighter colored standing seam.
Ma'am, as to these, what we're referencing here, the standing seam, Jeff, point that out. The red.
Red.
But not that color.
No.
But that style of metal roof, that's consistent with an older design, more appropriate for this historic home.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that material? The red.
Would you be willing to look at this type of metal roof instead? Okay.
And really, honestly, I don't know which one is, which one is really going on here, and which one is not. We just said because they had all the writing for this one, that's what was going on there. Actually, they supposed to be here with me. They didn't show up. So I really don't know which one is going on here.
Well, we would need to know that for sure. What we can do is we can leave your application open so you can come next month without any further difficulty on your part and get clarification. But it does appear that what Jeff just pointed out to you, that standing seam or simulated standing seam is consistent with an older design more appropriate for the structure.
And some colors and a couple of color
Color
choices.
samples, I mean, clearly a gray or a black would certainly be well and easily approved. A red tone is where it gets to be questionable. That we would need some samples.
I say, one house probably they have red.
And what color is the house?
White.
Yes, ma'am. As well, mentioned, start with the
Contrast.
distinction being set off with with the roof, having some distinction from the body of the house. Here you've got a red roof, a red brick, and adding a red roof, you're not gonna have that contrast that you have next door with the red and the white.
And you have a beautiful home. It's a beautiful building.
And it will be extra beautiful once I'm finished. Like I say, so that's just the first, because it is raining inside.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
raining inside. Like I say, I didn't know I had to come. But the outside will take a change too. It will be lightened up once it's pressure washing all of the areas that she was speaking of and trying to line up. They will be a bright white. So all of the colors, I guess I should have brought that picture to you. All of the colors in the property would.
Well, yeah, I think we made some progress. This, what Jeff just circled out, that version of a metal roof, of a contemporary metal roof, I think would fly with this group. And then the next, it would be the question of the color. And I think clearly a gray or a black would pass very easily. Anything else we'll be happy, of course, to look at and consider.
And if he could come with you, that would be very helpful. If the contractor could come with you, that would be very helpful.
And he can maybe speak to the slope of the roof.
I mean,
Why it has to be little.
And please understand, this structure, the property that you have means a lot to us. It is important, it is very attractive. I'm just looking to ensure that that continues on. We appreciate your patience.
I can promise you it will be attractive.
Indeed. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
You have a motion to table?
A motion to table
Move.
from John, second from Mary Lou, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now to BAR 2114.
The applicant is requesting approval to change the garage doors on the property at 2208 East Front Avenue in the North Anderson Historic District. Property is a single-family residence. The current garage. The applicant is seeking to change out the existing aluminum overhead doors for new wooden carriage doors similar to those originally on the house. The doors will be made of spruce with Charleston design half-glass 9-light windows. Now, the doors will be manually opening carriage doors. This is an example of the type of wood, but it would be a 9-light on the top instead, so basically the top half would be glass. Going carriage door style, as you see there, just a little more glass on the top there. There were originally wooden doors on there, and she has a piece of the old one. One's completely missing, and there's wood rot, and so these cannot be reused, and so they're trying to do something to replicate what was there originally. When reviewing this application, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 3 of the Residential Design Guidelines for rehabilitation of historic resources. Following sections apply to the request. Policy states to preserve the size and shape of historically significant windows and doors, repair deteriorated window or doors instead of replacing, and replace a window or door that is damaged beyond repair with one similar to that seen historically. Once again, the board will decide if the application meets the guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
Great, very attractive. We're going from aluminum to wood, to roll-up to carriage. Definitely moving in the right direction, very attractive. One question, Jeff, the finish on the wooden doors.
Be similar to this here that we see, or?
Dave? In what color? Okay.
The same color, probably the same color as the reference. The current doors are black.
Very nice. Questions, comments, concerns?
I think it's wonderful.
Very nice. All right, with that, we have a motion to approve from Amanda, second from Jill. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Next, we have VAR 2116.
The applicant is requesting approval to replace the sign faces in an existing freestanding sign at 918 West Whitman Street in the west side of the historic district, covering the home of Grace View Church of Christ. So this is the existing sign you see there, and you see them together here, old sign and new sign. We'll be installing a new 6x4 sign face in the existing cabinet sign. It will be aluminum with vinyl graphics. It appears that the sign has external illumination from a light in the sign base. Is that correct? The light in the base is the only illumination? Okay. When reviewing this application, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 8 of the downtown design guidelines for signs. Same information we've shared before.
Yes.
And again, I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
I noticed the old sign had removable letters interchangeable. The new sign, is there also changing, or is that the time of worship and study painted onto the sign?
Yes, it's you found just metal faces with vinyl graphics.
So the times of the study is not going to be interchangeable? No. Very good.
Very nice.
Attractive. Anything further? Any guidelines? He's not going to have to go before final this. Is he going to have to get a
He'll have
sign?
to, it's not permanent.
He will have to.
He's already done the application.
Excellent. Very good, sir. Motion. A motion from Andy to approve, second from Amanda. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, sir. Now on to VAR 2117.
The applicant is requesting approval for a new fence at 2304 East North Avenue, covering the single-family residence in the North Anderson Historic District. And the driveway comes up here, goes around the front, and then comes up into the back here. So this is the existing. You have an existing wood privacy fence along that side, cement block walls from here to here, and then an existing chain link fence that completes the enclosure here. So what they would like to change it to, they would like to actually enclose the whole backyard. The driveway again comes up here. So you still have the wood privacy fence. You would still have the cement block wall up to this point of it is in disrepair as you go down here, so they'd be replacing that with a wooden fence and replacing the chain link fence that's in this location here with that wood fence, and then adding this section here so they have an enclosed area pets, children be safely in the enclosed area. The fence, you see here, there's a wooden fence. Another picture of it. It'll be stained dark brown, dark wood stain, similar to one we saw, I believe it was just last month.
Correct.
On Edgewood Avenue. So the difference with this one would be, one of the differences would be the location. The Edgewood one was very visible, as that house has 3 road frontages. I think this would largely be invisible from the roadway. So it's a little different in that regard. You see the dimensions here, 56 3/4 inches high with the 4x6 mesh again. When reviewing this application, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 5 for site design, and the section regarding fences and site walls applies here. Also states that a fence or site walls should be in character with those used traditionally and relate to the principal structure on the lot. To preserve original fences and site walls, where no fence exists, keeping the yard open may be the best approach. Where a new fence is needed, it should be similar in character with those seen historically. Appropriate materials for fences that can be seen from the public right-of-way are wrought iron or wood picket, and a side yard fence should be set back from the primary facade of a house. Once again, the board must decide if the proposed improvements meet the above criteria. Happy to answer any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is here as well.
Very good. I flip back to the minutes from last month's meeting. when a very similar fence was presented before us, and we approved it. But in reading over the minutes, and if I recall, we approved it under a very limited, cautious set of circumstances. Specifically, we referenced that particular house did not have any significant architectural features that this fencing would fight against, would be contrary to, or not harmonious with. Also, we specifically talked about the particular aspects of the house, the location, the style, all being parts of the considerations, and that we very cautiously approved that fence in that house. Here, this house has some wonderful architectural features. Very significant, very attractive. The other was attractive, but it didn't have the architectural features that this one does. Here, what I'm looking at, certainly if this were the same house in the previous location, I don't think I could go along with it. It would be very much in conflict with the house. Here, the particular location of this fence, where it is in the very back, with all the shrubbery and replacing chain link that's there, I'm inclined to make yet again sort of an exception of this fencing material and design that would not ordinarily be willing to approve. So again, I'm just harking back to the exceptions that we made and the special considerations that we went through last week, including the similar style. In that this fencing, if we were to approve it tonight again, would not be applicable, appropriate for just anywhere in historic districts. Comments, thoughts, concerns?
Color, stained or?
It would be stained a dark brown. It's a cedar tone stain.
What color is the privacy fence on the side?
It is a very dark brown color. It's almost weathered to a dark color. I can tell you the definite stain color of it. There it is there.
I particularly like the attention to the detail does sort of call back to a more historic fence, even though it is a modern update to, it's not a solid wooden fence, but I like the fact that it does refer back to a historical detail and it's not just a post.
With the caps,
I think the
yeah.
detail helps.
Yeah, the house has some playful kind of crafts and unique details to the fence. It's kind of, it helps complement some of those details. So it's, something different, but I think it plays well with the house.
And the fact that you can't see it at all.
Yeah, that.
You see.
I just question the appropriateness if it were front yard or more prominent fence up against this house. And that's the distinction I'm looking to make for, because this fence is not exactly matching with our guidelines and having to make an exception when it fits. Not just wholesale, let's seeing this fence throughout the historic district. I would not be able to approve it on my end. My vote. But here, again, this particular set of circumstances, location, orientation to the house.
And doing, replacing it on both sides and doing away with chain link. We're not replacing it, adding this so that it's not,
It's an upgrade.
It's an added consideration, but certainly, again, and I'm sorry to make this distinction, but I think it's important, is that we can't have every chain link fence in historic districts that remain replaced with this,
Right.
wherever they happen to be. It's a case-by-case basis of location, design, and harmony.
Right.
And I think, and this is another consideration, so many of the fences, even that we approve, are not aging well.
True.
I think this one will age much better.
All right,
That's a very good point.
with that, is there a motion? A motion from Bill, a second from John. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir. And finally tonight, VAR 2118. Again, our friend Zion.
Applicant is seeking approval for several changes to the building at 122 West Whitner Street in the downtown historic district. The building is the new home of N2 Ice Cream Factory. Most of the work will take place in the building interior. There are several proposed upgrades to the building exterior. And again, Billy is involved in this one, so I'll let him do most of this, but new storefront, changes from the existing with the storefront glass, refurbishing this section here, repainting the details on the top. And then one other item which was added today that I haven't even talked to Billy about today, but she also wants sign approval. She wants to paint the logo and signage on the middle portion here. And see if I can zoom this in enough. You see the logo, the N2 Ice Cream Factory. And so the Owen factory is a little gear, and you've got a little beaker there for the eye and the ice. They would just like to paint that up in the white piece in the middle of the building to be where they would do the sign. We're trying to get approval for that for her tonight as well. And you may know a little more about that.
Yeah, so all of the existing brick will remain as it is. They'll just clean it up. And all the existing cornice and everything will remain as it is. They'll just paint it white. The only changes, they're going to put new windows. The existing window openings, they will be metal, black. They're proposing black metal windows in those same openings with a similar grid pattern than what was there before. And on the bottom level, they're knocking out a lot of that brick wall and putting more storefront to bring more light in on the lower level, again with the black metal storefront. And that piece off to the right, where that other door is, that's all going to be new. Again, within the existing masonry opening and following the same mullion pattern that was there before. And the awning is going to be, I think they're going to refurbish the existing awning, I think is the plan. So the metal awning that's there now will remain just refurbished and cleaned up. And that white area is stucco that they will scrape and repaint as well.
Question, Billy, why not do a canvas awning to minimize, or a metal awning to minimize big slab of white stucco?
I guess to leave room for, I wasn't aware of her signage intention, but just to leave room for signage in the future, I guess would be in there. And I guess you could still, if you put the metal awning, still have a little bit of room for signage, but then you would interrupt those coffered recessed stucco here. You kind of cut those with the top part of your awning.
Or modify them just to be portion above the awning? Just a design question.
So, to the right of the existing now.
Right.
Where it's, above that white door that's going to be glass. And then where you have, brick with white framing around it or something. That's going to be glass. All right, and then this is white stucco up above that, but that's going, no, oh, keep going. There, no, now, down, up.
Right under the window.
Right there. It's white now. Is that stucco now, and it's going to be scraped off, and there's brick underneath?
It's paint now, if you look at the photo, and they're gonna try to clean it up.
Yeah. It is. Right.
It's not stucco. So if they cannot remove that, well, I assume they will paint that back, whatever color they paint the stucco next to it. And there is a building attached to the right there. You can see.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of the material, colors, and finishes are going to remain the same. It'd be nice if they could clean up that entire cornice.
And so all that brick planter will come out,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, that's not original.
and everything
It's-
comes forward.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's all been retrofitted, new brick down below. And it kind of slants away from the street, so the new storefront would be closer to the sidewalk and take up basically that entire opening right there.
Show the proposed front again. We don't have that in our packet. in our budget.
That just came with it.
Uplighting on that sign, do you think, or downlighting?
It's also putting lights on top of the awning shine up
Okay.
at the sign, whatever the sign ends up being.
Which would be a reason for leaving the awning as it is.
And you may not know, but I mean, are they talking about this, like, middle section to paint the sign on?
I don't know.
Can we approve the design of the sign and the application, but not the location until we get some clarification on that at a later date?
If we, what I would like to do, I think, is, because they're in a hurry to get going and get things started, I think, but if, you know, if you have a preference, like you only want it on the middle square, then maybe approve that, if you are willing to approve the sign, and then if it's going to be something other than that, maybe bring something back to show again.
That works.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further? That's to the design, and we'll add in the signage in the middle section. Stucco. Motion to approve? From John, second, Mary Lou. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Very good. Thank you, Billy. That concludes the public hearing portion. We've had an opportunity to review minutes from last month's meeting.
I have an addition.
Yes.
On the second page, I mentioned that the white trim would be very noticeable and would draw attention to the top of the fountain. And we suggested that, or I suggested that this not be added on the top, and I think Amanda agreed with me that it would be conspicuous. It would be better if you didn't add that white top on the top. Didn't you, Amanda?
I'm sorry, say,
Right, yes, I recall that.
Yeah. Remember how it had that white trim on the top of the
Yes,
tent?
yes,
We
yes.
decided it would look better without that.
yes.
That wasn't in the minute.
Okay, so, Linda, if you could add in that Jill indicated that the white top board, she found to be distracting and recommended that it be painted or stained the same material as the rest of the fence. And the applicant agreed and modified his application accordingly.
Yes. We do.
Anything else?
Not on last month's, but I know this may not even matter, Jeff, but on tonight's 2113, it's got the address as Watson Avenue.
Yeah, I was really confused about that. I was trying to place that on Watson.
Yeah, that's not
That
Watson.
is not on Watson Avenue.
Oh, the actual staff report itself?
Yes.
Okay. I have it right on the agenda, I guess I missed that.
All right. Motion to approve? Minutes? Oh. Thank you, Jill. Second. Approved? Bill. All in favor? Opposed? Anything further tonight? Thank you all for your attention, patience, and dedication. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Amanda. Bill, second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.